And take off. We are live, guys. Excited to talk about 12 Days of Art. We got five of the artists up. We should be joined by Rich later. And excited to just chop it up, gentlemen. How are we doing today?
Groovy.
Doing well, man. How you doing?
I love that word, groovy.
Doing good.
Doing great as
Pretty
well.
good. Happy
Doing
Friday.
crazy.
Happy Friday.
We got Space Case up. We got Mobsum, 09, F. Dot, and Alamo. F. Dot and Alamo, you guys dropped today, day 5.
We will in a couple hours. Yeah, not yet, but almost there.
Gotcha. What time
Yeah.
what's drop time?
6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific.
You got it.
Yeah.
Did you guys participate last year?
Yeah, I did. I was on Nifty Gateway last year. I did a very different style piece, and it was an edition. So this year I'm changing up the whole approach. How about you, Alamo? Were you there last year? Yeah.
No, this is my first year. So I watched it all go down on Nifty Gateway. Super exciting. And so when Rich reached out, it was kind of it made total sense.
Yeah, man, I love your piece.
Thanks. It was a really hard piece to do. That was one of the more challenging prereqs, I would say, on creating it.
What do you mean by prereqs?
Well, everybody was taking inspiration from Rich's aerial photography, and I haven't done any work that's literally just bird's eye view, and so really digging deep on those layers and trying to figure out what a good concept is was super difficult. And I mean, he reached out 3 months ago, and I kept pushing it off, just like I feel like every project, you're kind of working on the project that is current, that's in front of you. And so I kept pushing it off, thinking that something would brew. And you're working subconsciously behind the scenes on almost every project. And when I first sat down on it, it was just empty, blank. I drew a couple of different sketches that I posted on Twitter, and they were almost identical of what the photos that I was getting inspired off of. And then I had to put it away for a couple of weeks and then look back at it again. And that happened probably 4 or 5 different sessions before I really had to crack down on it. And I'd say when I had to crack down, it was a couple of weeks ago when it really needed to make a dent in on it. So yeah, pressure's the cooker.
Do you often feel like I was thinking this today about how I feel like when I was younger, I would do things way more proactively. And now I feel like a lot of my best work is done when I'm towards the last minute. Do you often feel like you leave things towards later?
I try not to, but I am, again, I'll look at it and I'll brew on it. And you have a couple of weeks where you're kind of dreaming about it and really digging those layers deeper. It's almost like writing a text message and then maybe you should respond the next day opposed to right away, just so you can really think about it. And with this type of work, you're really trying to get those concepts down and not, you want to paint a pretty picture, but you really want to have some layers underneath it. For me, at least, in my art.
Yep. Also want to take a quick second to call out the pinned tweet. If everybody doesn't mind sharing the pinned tweet, would appreciate it. Want to get as much turnout for everybody up here. And you can join us on YouTube. You can grab the YouTube link from the pinned tweet and catch us on video. So want to touch on the concept, though, of 12 days. So I understand the collaboration with Rich. Were all of you guys given essentially a seed piece of Rich's that you had to work off of? What's the whole concept behind it?
We could actually choose whichever piece we wanted to from his library this year. Last year, there was a lot of people doing basketball court and tennis court stuff, so that was kind of the theme. But this year, I think Rich has a larger body of work, and we just were able to choose whichever piece we wanted to. He kept pressuring and say, which piece do you want to do? Which piece do you want to choose? And trying to get the process started. But I, just like Alamo, I was pushing it off until the last week before it was due. But that's usually how it goes. I get my best ideas in the end there. But yeah, how did you guys choose the photo that you chose for this project? Who wants to answer? Anyone?
It was tough for me personally. Like, there's so many cool aerial photos, but for me personally, the way I had to approach it is like similar to you guys. Like, I had to see what would like work for like something, I guess, like street related, I guess, in a way. And I've never done an aerial shot like you were saying, Alamo. That was the toughest part for me because I'm used to like layering to add depth, or like some kind of diminishing background. So I think it was those bright colors of the tracks that really, like, for me stood out. So I was looking at it more of like from a graphic element, you know?
Yeah, it's cool to see design being brought into the equation here, because it's like he captures things that are designed by people, and usually from an unlikely perspective or at a time of day where there's like some shadow play going on. I love that about his work. And now we're here talking about the numbers on a running track, when usually it's about feelings or it's about a specific moment in your life. But we all have those moments from childhood where we saw something like what we're seeing in Rich's photos. So it's nostalgic, but it's also about design, which I really like.
Yeah, like I see that in like a lot of, sorry about that, a lot of the newer stuff he's doing with the solar panels on top of roofs.
Yep.
Like those really feel like graphic and almost designed in a way. Like I could see some like cool parametric artwork coming from that.
Yeah, it was tough for me. I was trying to find like, I think for me it's really important that I find something that I connect to emotionally. So I'm not a sports person at all. Like I was when I was a kid. But you know, I have so many obsessions that I eventually had to like let go of a couple of them, and sports just like was one of the things I let go of. So for me, I was like really drawn to the cargo containers and kind of like this very like stark. Well, I love the colors of them, but like ultimately, I started really going into what the meaning of the containers were for me, which is like stuff, thinking about material objects that come to us and where they come from. I started thinking about shipments coming into the country, going out of the country. And then I started really getting into like the nitty gritty of it. And I started thinking about how like each container will have what's called a manifest, and they like list what's in the containers. And I really like to play with like dualities, like within words, like when there's two meanings. So I really started digging into the word manifest and how it's used a lot these days in a more like kind of pseudo spiritual sense. And So I chose to make my piece about that, just about like manifestation, and kind of there's a little like nudge, nudge, wink, wink, like I'm manifesting something, but it's actually just coming to me on a shipping container, Yeah, so I kind of like made my work about that and felt really connected to it. But I'm very similar to you guys in terms of like putting it off. It was more so that like I knew what I wanted to do. I picked my inspiration shots, but I feel like this, even when you're not working on it, you're mentally like putting the pieces together in your head, and there's a lot of work that has to happen there first. And for me, I just have to wait until that feels super potent and strong before I start messing around like on the actual piece, because otherwise I'm just chasing my tail otherwise.
Yeah, we can definitely see the shipping container like influences here. But I like the point on you manifesting. Is there a particular thing that you're manifesting waiting to come, or is that just kind of a concept that you wanted to portray?
I mean, not me personally. I don't necessarily know if I really, well, okay, so like part of me is extremely skeptical and part of me is also extremely spiritual. Like, and it really depends on how recently I've eaten LSD. um, I think that for me, I also like to incorporate memes and stuff into my work in subtle ways. So I kind of took the cartoon of Bobby, from King of the Hill, where he's like he's like sitting cross-legged in a room, and there's incense burning, and he's like sort of like meditating. So I took that and kind of fucked with it and kind of made him this weird like Buddha figure in the center, and just made him trip out and kind of put him in this sea of shipping containers. And so I scrawled around on the piece, just writing like, you know, everything I need is already on the way, you know, because I think that's sort of like a mantra that a lot of like hippies say, you know, like it's all here already. Everything I need, I have. And I liked the idea that that can be true, but maybe it's just like on a ship, you know, being sent to your local store that you're going to go buy. But I also, you know, I also like the idea that there's can be some magic in the universe too, and that sometimes there's things that we don't understand happening, you know, like we can will things into being, and we can bring things, you know, via like attention and energy. Yeah, like I believe both things, but I think I do like to have both of those kind of philosophies present in my work often. Yeah, it's like there's like an optimist and cynic that's both present.
Yeah, I think there's some awesome details here, man. Like scrolling in, I'm appreciating the rating that's up top. I can't zoom in on. There we go. Everything I need is coming to me. Everything I need is on the way. I like the handwriting. But are you guys law of attraction people? Do you believe that you can just speak it into existence, or do you think that it's a bit deeper than that?
I think the moment you try to define like those magic forces in the universe that we don't fully understand, I think it like sets you back because you're expecting it to happen now. But I think there is a lot of power in just deciding what you want and deciding you're going after it, and you're going to like make it happen day after day. But I don't think it just comes to you and you manifest it. I think it's more like you set your mind to it. And then the rest of the forces, like let them do what they got to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like you got to design your system, right? The designing the system to get to that point. You manifest it in your mind, you think about it, but that doesn't necessarily make it happen. You got to put those small little actions in place to make it happen over a period of time. Because I think a lot of times it's easy to forget that, you know, it doesn't just happen overnight. It's like small steps that you stick to make it happen over time. You know, it's not something that happens right away.
You know, in a lot of ways, I think that it's just being open and available, and it's kind of like if we're talking about as an artist specifically, it's mostly about still making work, still being here, and I don't even mean Web3 when I say here, but just literally just in the world, still going. I've seen a lot of like no's turn into yeses over the years, and it's just literally just about continuing your vision and just working and working and working. And then, you know, some people could say that, oh, you manifested this. It's like, well, I guess kind of, you know, it depends on what your viewpoint of what's actually happening when you're manifesting. But I think once you concentrate your energy on something more, which I think a lot of people say, like if you're going to manifest something, you have to sort of focus on it each day and kind of be willing it towards you. And I think what we do by that extra focus and that extra energy is part of the equation of what brings it to us, you know?
I think it's a lot more than, so I feel like as people speak it, then their actions kind of will follow suit. I think that if you're taking actions to like achieve any particular objective, you know, naturally you're probably going to talk about it a bit more. But I don't think talking about it does the job in and of itself. I think one can like reiterate their goal and tell themselves in the mirror every day, and I don't think that's going to do the job. I think it's very much so, as you guys mentioned, those tiny actions compound over a long enough time horizon, and you'll get there. But was appreciating a lot about just like Space's piece in the or ADHD's piece in the background. to ask you, dude, on creative process here. I see that like a lot of this looks, very digital, where it's you've, dragged different like portions of the piece across, but then you also have these, lines and like scribbles all over the place. Where did this? What was that process like? I guess merging all of the different chaos that you've kind of portrayed on the page.
Stressful.
Is it though? I guess my follow up question there is, I feel like that I almost feel like the chaos has to be like natural, kind of on the fly, you not thinking too much about it.
You would think that. That's kind of what I'm tricking you into thinking. I mean, realistically, this is many cycles of printing, scribbling, scanning, compositing parts, ripping away other parts. There's actually this started out as a portrait piece, and actually there is a bottom section that I'm going to incorporate into the auction somehow. I'm either going to initially I was thinking maybe Bidder's edition, but I think it might be better to just give the winner the option to have a second twin piece that would kind of like make it a diptych, that they could have two pieces, or if they wanted it to merge and become into like a portrait piece, they could have the whole thing. But I made that call like very late in the game because I was kind of just feeling a little bit like unsure of the portrait. Now, of course, I look at it and I love it. But I didn't have that space to kind of like not look at it for a couple days. And I cropped it, in half as a landscape at the very end, and I loved it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go with this. But essentially, yeah, I mean, like, the idea is to make it look very natural and kind of like I'm just like drawing all over the place and dragging stuff here and there. But like to get the balance right, to get things feeling the way I want it to feel, there's a lot of cutting away. There's a lot of, boosting certain levels in certain areas, like taking back entire sections. And I like to, it's controlled chaos, really. I mean, like I do want it to have an element of like you can't meticulously do a lot of this stuff. It needs to be fast. Like you can't do that scribble very slowly. Like like it has to be fast in order for it to feel like energetic. But also you can't keep every section of it because otherwise it overtakes the whole piece. So that's kind of the thing I've learned with like doing physical versus digital. You have to learn how to like take away when you're making digital work. Whereas like with physical, you kind of have to learn how to get it right, like the first time as much as possible. But anyway, yeah, I don't want to keep going. Got me blabbing.
No, feel free, man. Always. Somebody else was saying something along very similar lines, and I forgot who it was. It might have been Pedro Baez, actually, F. Alamo, who I was talking to recently. And I think he was just talking about how he like encouraged his girlfriend to start creating physical work, and she came from a digital background, and how her like digital process completely shifted once she started making physical work because it's more, you have to get it right on the first try, as you said.
I think it's like any medium's going to push you in a different direction in so many different ways. Like if you're going from digital to physical, that's pushing in one way. If you're going from drawing to ceramics, that's going to open up a whole new portal. And photography, like all across the board, anything creative is going to open up something new. Yeah, that might be more or less, but yeah. I think
was
that's the
thinking
fun
this
part.
yesterday. Do you feel like as artists, you guys can pretty much pick up any medium? And obviously you're not going to be wildly proficient with a brand new medium that you pick up. But do you just feel like that you can pick up any medium and probably make something like decent to your liking, just coming from that creative background?
Oof. That's a tough one. I think there's an eye for certain things like photography and painting and drawing, and I think ceramics for me translates pretty well, but there are tons of different mediums that I can't even mess with. even going to like ADHD's work, I have no idea how to be that complicated in my work. Like all I'm trying to do is remove stuff. And so talk about anxiety, that gives me anxiety trying to even compose a thing like that. And so if someone says try and draw in this style, like no, I can't do it, you know. So there's the aspect for me that's just not really possible, which is I think the beauty of why the art is, everybody's art is so unique, is because it's impossible to even create that. Even like AI art, like the prompts, I have no idea how they're doing all that stuff, and it takes a certain mind to come up with those right words to create those types of things, and it's just across the board. So that for me, I think the answer is no.
I also think there's like multiple layers to each kind of medium you're using too, right? Like it's like with painting, like there's a big difference between doing something that's minimal or geometric in its nature compared to something that's like realism, right? So it's like you even have to think about the layers within the layers for different mediums as well. And it's really hard to say like going from one to another and thinking you're going to do good when you're looking at something you don't even, there's so many different layers within that one thing. It's hard to justify if what you're going to do is good compared to like what others do in that same particular style in that medium.
Yeah. Which is how a bunch of cool new work can come out, It's like those really uncomfortable moments can like spark something really cool. And I think that different tangent, that's why collaboration's pretty amazing, because it's something that you just don't understand and the other person can help realize that, and vice versa. And then together you're like, holy shit, what the hell did we just make? Just like wasn't possible if you tried to take on that person's approach on your own. So I think that is super cool.
Yeah, I also think that I feel like if an artist picks up a new medium, I still feel like they would use it in a way that kind of aligns with, I guess, what they're familiar with. Like, for example, I feel like if F Dot picked up a new medium today, I wouldn't imagine that F Dot's going to start, trying to use it in like a realism sense, because I feel like his style is different than that.
Yeah, I'd also say like all like artists who have put in a ton of work, like in the beginning, you are actively exploring all these different things because you're like, what's this? What's this? You're in school, teachers are giving you all these different tools. And then over the years, you're literally scraping those away and simplifying. And then once going back to like F Dot's work, it's like he simplified everything down to a certain thing. And then once you understand that, then you can start evolving it more. But yeah, I think for artists who have put in the work, they're just trying to remove stuff. That's my point of view, at least.
I want to hear.
That's what I do, at least.
I want to hear Eric talk about it.
Yeah. Sorry for you.
About realism and style. I was just talking with Brinkman about how style is something that other people perceive, not what you perceive about your work. Because there is a style that connects everything you've made if you've done it with your hand, especially. And no one can draw a line exactly like you can. And we all have this sort of muscle memory that's built up from years and years of creating, even if it's editing video or whatever. So I think it's more like everyone else's problem than it is our problem as the artist to define what we would do in any given situation. Like people can speculate about, what would we do if you said make a realism work? Like maybe I would take a realism work from Getty and I would like doodle over it. Or maybe I would doodle and then mask the realism inside of the lines so that it still has some realism within some bolder lines. I think there's ways to remix it and like that's the process. That's the fun part. That's the part I'm interested in talking about. Not like, is this or is this not someone's style? Because everybody can like take a problem and figure out how to solve it, or take a seed and figure out how to grow it into something.
What was that piece you did recently that would like it had such like a design kind of like foundation to it? Remember I commented like this is fresh. Like what was that piece? That was so different.
Yeah, so every once in a while I get asked to do portraits of people, and I don't know why because I don't draw people, but I think the project came in and I was supposed to draw the founder of Friend Tech. and I had never also used FriendTech, and there's no information out there about this guy at all. So I basically chose a theme for the project, since his name was Racer, and I drew like a speed racer anime style thing. So I was referencing a style that came before, or a piece of pop culture that came before, and trying to make it work within my aesthetic and my colors. And I did a lot of that with the baseball cards, but it's been a couple years since I did a portrait, so that's probably why it felt like so out of left field. But it was also very weird to do like 2 years of portraits with those baseball cards, and like see people react and being like, oh, like this looks more like editorial illustration, or looks more like design mixed with your style of art. And yeah, like keep talking about it. That's great. That's the point. I don't really have a way to like say this is one thing or this is another. It's just like all about the process for me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I love that. And to me, I like, it didn't feel left field at all. It felt rooted in your earlier work, but almost like it's a reminder that I think we work sometimes in phases or in bursts, and that you can always reconnect to those phases and those bursts and continue them. And like, I don't know, I never, yeah, obviously anyone that looks at like a poorly put together thread of my work, like it's like all over the place enough to make you want to puke. Like it's crazy. But then if you put certain pieces next to each other, then they really start talking to each other. And then it's kind of like sequencing an album. Like, you know, like certain songs just don't like sound good next to each other. And I think of art very like in a very similar way. I think like visual art and music have similar like emotional kind of like vibrations, where, you know, you can do something totally different than you did yesterday, and it still completely speaks to your larger body of work, you know?
Dude, very much so agreed on that. I think this piece is absolutely absurd. I had similar thoughts, ADHD, when I saw this. I was like, it was just like wild to see F Dot go this route with this piece. And dude, want to talk to you about like the little details in this. Like what kind of inspired the little like the buy me, sell me, all of these, like I feel like there's a lot of little symbols in here that have a deeper meaning.
Yeah, so like if you know anything about the FriendTech app, it's basically like you can buy and sell your friends as shares or like keys to get into their group chat. And I just thought the whole concept was so ridiculous. And it's like, yeah, let's do it. We're going to evolve social media. And he's just like driving this car at like 100 miles an hour into the future, where social media and finance is like the same thing. And everyone's sort of just like, okay, I guess. And then like the people who want to make money, they're like, oh yeah, like buy my key, pump me, dump me, spy me, sell me, like whatever. That's like the kind of stuff you saw on the timeline when people were just making a lot of money with this app. And it was kind of annoying, but also kind of hilarious to watch as a behavioral experiment. So that's what the little things in the corners are alluding to. And that's where I find a lot of the time is spent. It's just like in the corners, having fun, like in that little abstract composition on the bottom left right there. That's just like me having fun with the Coinbase logo. So taking the Coinbase logo, since this app was run on Base, like right after Base came out, I was like, let's just abstract it or play with it until it feels like it belongs here as a part of the composition. And then if you know, you see the Coinbase logo now.
That whole left section is so good, man. It's so awesome. I love it.
Yeah,
Thanks,
man.
Steve.
This work is really crazy. I love this in this work. Everything since FriendTech tag and all composition balance it. I think get as like this composition so hard because this work have beautiful balance it and beautiful textures, and I think it's just wow. Yeah, man.
Mavsum, it's good to hear your voice, man. I want to jump into your piece as well. So I'm gonna pull it up now, but boom. Also want to take a quick moment for everybody that is currently on the Twitter space. We are streaming live on YouTube, so you can grab the YouTube link from the pinned tweet and join us on video. There we go. Sweet. Yeah, Mavsum, it's cool to see this also. So tennis court. seems like that's where you got inspiration from Rich. What's the J Dilla though?
J Dilla, one of my big inspiration in my journey in my life, and in my all pieces, all artworks, and in this piece, when Rich invite me for this collaboration and creation, I'm just it's like wow, because last year when I first joined in this space, I mean Web3, and when I saw this contest, I'm just like, damn, this contest is maybe it's my dream and one of the goals, and I think in one day I joined it for this tour. And this year, when Rich invited me, I'm just really thinking about tennis court or basketball, and and get inspiration from tennis because I want to make not usually tennis projects from artists as like Petra, Stick, and so on artists. And for me, this journey in this collaboration is so fun and so crazy because during this piece, 1 month, and I got inspiration from generative tennis court by Max Grazer. I inspired from his colors and from digital techniques because his techniques for me always the best in rap, in hip hop, in my in how I transfer this to my art, and they say that's all.
No, man, it's cool to hear, and it's also cool to see like the hip hop influences as well. But go ahead, were you gonna say something? No, no worries.
No, I'm just happy.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like this is, you can definitely see Rich's like influences in this too, in the J Dilla tennis court, and it's cool to see how you took your own style and then put it on top of that, and to see where it landed. But want to let's jump to 09 next.
I was gonna say really quick about Mav's piece. What I think is really cool about it is like for some reason I get Simon Says game in my head, which is like, I don't know if you guys remember it. Might be showing how old I am, but it's like a game where you got to remember the beat or the sound and the lights or whatever. But I mean that in like the best of way because it like kind of brings me back to like what a beatbox machine is, and like when they're on the machine and making beats. And I think that's really cool. And it kind of like it ties with the music and the tennis part. Because what I like about this too, with the tennis balls you added, Mav, is like that then like I get like images of like the little I have watched tennis with, which is pretty much never. But when I've seen like replays when the ball hits the ground and they like pause it and they show like the shadowing and everything. I don't know, that I always thought there was something kind of cool about that. And I see that in your piece and it looks dope, man. I like this piece. It's interesting. It's like chaotic but organized in a way, and kind of, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I think the diagonals add to that, to the chaos there, and cool call outs on that front. I can see like where you're going 09 with the tennis balls, and I think it does tie in well with the hip hop as you mentioned.
Yeah, I love it as well. I keep thinking of like a maze and like the start and finish. Like keep trying to figure out where I'm supposed to start and finish, and it's really special. And the color palette is unbelievable.
As you were talking 09 about the
Thank you.
About just like the machine you were saying before, it reminded me of that stupid game, I think it was Kids Bop. I don't know why, but that came to mind. The little like Kids Bop stick thing that you would like bop and it'd make noise and stuff.
Is that the one where I'm thinking of the one where you like are kicking on the ground and it's spinning around your ankle? What's that one called?
I don't remember that. So I don't remember what that's called.
Skip
But
it.
that was
Skip
lit as
it.
hell, dude.
Yeah.
Skip
Yeah,
it.
the bop it, the twist it,
I think that's what I was thinking about was the Bop It Twist Twisted.
getting
Oh,
some
Kids
90s
Bop was
vibes
the
going on.
Kids Bop was like the I think that like music channel is what it was. But yeah, throwbacks all around.
I think I'm too old.
09, what were you playing with as a kid? What's your throwback?
For me, it was like He-Man and G.I. Joes when I was little, but I got into skateboarding at like 10, 11 years old, so I threw away my toys after that. I was a little hood rat kid, so I did skateboarding and graffiti when I was really little.
Where did you grow up
Oh
again,
yeah.
man? Was it LA or New York?
Yeah, I grew up in, well, it's technically a suburb of LA. It's called the San Fernando Valley, but we call it LA. I mean, according to taxes, we pay more taxes than people in LA, so we called ourselves LA. But yeah, LA area.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
F-Dot, when did you pick up the skateboard, man?
I was gonna say, like, we gotta go skate next time I'm out west, or next time you're east if you're still skating. I picked up skateboarding at like age 13, so about 20 years ago now. Yeah, I'm 33, so 13. I broke one leg, so that put me out for a year, and then I went right back to it. But definitely not as hardcore about it as I used to be.
That was my problem. Like I had one injury that really ruined my trajectory that I was going at, like lost sponsorship after that. And then, yeah. So, but anytime you're in LA or I'm in New York, cause that's where I think you're located, right? I thought.
Yep.
Yeah.
In Brooklyn.
We should definitely skate. I'll be playing ground tricks though. Nothing crazy for me.
That's cool. I think, I was going to say that in order to lose your sponsorship, you have to get sponsored first. So props to you for that. That's not easy.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, it was nothing. It was no big deal. It's just a skate shop and a Flow sponsorship, but it was fun. I enjoy those days.
Still counts, man. Want to jump into your piece though, dude?
Let's do it.
Pulling up yours next. We'll start with 09 and then we'll jump to F-Dot afterwards. I got a thread on you, 09. Do you want to walk us through thread?
Yeah, sure. Like I just kind of wanted to talk about like my process a little bit going into this. I had a little bit of a hard time trying to deal with like a aerial shot. Like I said earlier, considering that most of my artwork is like, 2-point perspective, things like that. So it was a lot of back and forth for me. Early on, I knew that those were the two pieces from Rich that I liked. And so I knew that I wanted to do something with those. I just wasn't sure at first. So I ideated all the, for a couple of weeks, because he told me early on when he first invited me like to be part of it. So I knew I had plenty of time to come up with something that I thought was decent enough. Especially because all these amazing artists that are part of the group show, I didn't want to have the one crappy piece in the show because there's so much good art, So yeah, I kind of explored a little bit. Like in the next part of the thread, I showed how like I took some of his images and kind of like overlaid them on some of the hooded figures that I have, which I call vandals. Kind of was doing this kind of like fashion exploration, since that's something, a big influence in my design work, what I do in my real life. And then I was wanting to play with like perspective. Like all this stuff is super loose, but I figured why not just show how loose I am in the beginning of like this person climbing kind of this the football field and then tagging the collaboration up top. But I didn't really feel that concept was strong enough. And I kind of just like, it was like the rest of them. It was in the back of my mind. I was constantly thinking about like, what could I do? And I was driving on the freeway. If you scroll down, I was driving on the freeway. I'm out here in Orange County. And, there's this mural by Shepherd Ferry that I drive by all the time. And, never really thought about it. I mean, I stopped by when he first painted it to check it out because I'm a big Shepherd Ferry fan. I have been for years. And it's just a really beautiful piece. But that's when I drove by that the last time, that's what like sparked my idea. My idea was to like, if I can't come up with something like from an aerial perspective, like, where I'm like either putting my work onto his aerial photography, I figured well, why not like take his aerial shot and make it a mural? And that's kind of where the concept came up. And so the idea was to have this kind of zoom out shot, because that's like representative of like when his drone takes off and like zooms up, right? So I wanted to kind of take some of that movement that I think is very interesting when I see a lot of drone shots kind of like zoom up when we're about to take the photography. That's where the idea of the zoom out came from. So this is the the concept right there, and it's a combination of different tools that I used. I used some Mid-Journey, Stable Diffusion, and like for instance, Rich's mural right there is I drew that on my Cintiq in Photoshop, overlaid that stuff to make it feel more painterly, like the guy actually like painted it on the side of the building. And I just really wanted to kind of capture that, essentially taking his aerial shot and putting it into more of a 2-point perspective, dimensional piece that I usually work with. And I wanted to get a little bit of that street feeling and that nitty gritty and some of my Vandal characters in there for fun.
Yeah, dude, it's cool to catch the character here at the bottom. And just like the tinier details I think pop out. It's like you have the top mural. This one pops in on the right. And then I also love, not sure exactly like what it is, but just how for example, the wall kind of changed textures throughout.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is a common theme throughout your work, right?
Yeah, it's like a process that I have where I create one image and I run it through a program through Stable Diffusion, and I usually pick like out of that one image, I usually pick 3 frames, and what that does is kind of adds like this. Within those 3 frames, when I'm adding like certain parameters to Stable Diffusion, it keeps the image consistent but changes it just enough, so it adds this kind of like interesting animation glitch. I don't even know what to call it, which I find fairly interesting because it kind of adds visual interest as the piece is moving. The hardest part for this was keeping the detail while running it through some of these Stable Diffusion programs like that. I had to really go back on each frame and sketch over it to kind of enhance the detail as it zooms out. But some of the stuff that's like hand done, like I said, is that painting, that mural on the wall, and then like some of the lettering that I did, because I've been writing graffiti for a long time. So I always try to throw stuff in like that.
How many frames is it, dude?
Oh, I think the total of this, I don't remember exactly. I have it in my folder, but I think it's like 60 something.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because for each image that you see, there's 3 for them, and then it zooms out, and there's a collective number of zoom out. I think it zooms out 6 or 7 times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then wait, did you have to start essentially from, you probably had to start from the innermost perspective and then continue building on that.
Yeah, there's this option, there's this tool in Mid-Journey. You can zoom out of the image and it creates an image. So what I would do is find an image that I like and zoom it out from there. And then for each image that I create, I throw it into Photoshop to adjust according to what I like I either collage pieces together or I sketch over it. And then I throw that into a locally ran Stable Diffusion to get the actual like feeling that I want over it. Gotcha, yeah, so man. It's a lot of back and forth, and sometimes it takes a while depending on how long the animation is. I mean, I'm sure there's easier ways to do it, but I kind of just like the flavor that I'm doing with this kind of animation stuff, and that's just the way I'm doing it.
Yup. And what's subject up here?
It was a dude at one point, like chilling up on a ladder. Mm-hmm. And see, that's the thing. Like in my professional work, like I do design work and I have to be very precise when I'm designing cars, like to the millimeter. And the thing that attracted me to AI collaborative tools was that it's not perfect. I like artifacts. I like when it's not perfect. I mean, of course, unless if I'm really trying to control certain things, like for instance, with Rich's work, like I didn't want that to look like a blob. So I controlled that. But with certain things like that was supposed to be a dude on like a scaffolding. You can't even tell that it is, but I'm cool with it. It doesn't need to be perfect in that regard. And that's kind of why I like using these tools to begin with. Cause it's like a contrast of what I do professionally. And like the stuff that I'm doing professionally is so high frequency, kind of feels good to let go a little bit when I'm being a little more creative on my free time.
Yeah, I think it's cool to kind of give the freedom to the medium too.
Yeah, it's that collaborative part that I like about it. It's not in all my work, but some of it I think it's okay.
Yeah, it lets the AI like leave its mark. It's almost like AI signature, I feel like, on the piece. But what's rating here, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, so that's an example of how Stable Diffusion changed it, but that's one of the pieces I did. The writing I did by hand that said 09 and rich at the bottom. So
Gotcha, that's tight.
yeah, if there's another frame you have, you can see it more clearly, especially if it's zoomed up. It's just a Photoshop. Like if you do let it go to the zoomed up part, you can really see how it's right there. Yeah, so 09 and then rich at the bottom. Just tribute to the collaboration.
Yep. Yeah, I just love your writing on this. I think is sweet.
Yeah, trying to bring some LA hand styles into the mix. It's kind of a little bit cholo, a little bit not.
If we keep an eye for your writing in LA, can we find it or no?
I haven't gone out bombing in a long time. I was doing it in the 90s. And by no means was I like some prolific graffiti writer like, Saber or any of these LA legends, but no, probably not anymore. I think it's all been buffed up.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, we have another skater that we want to jump into, and I'm going to pull up F-Dot's piece now. Got it. Course correction. Why the course correction name, man?
Yeah, good question. It seems kind of random when you look at it, but the project for me was something where I was thinking about it for a while of like, what photo am I going to choose from Rich's portfolio? And I basically took as long as I could take to decide before I just had to choose one and dive in. And the piece that I chose was an image of a golf course. It was a mini golf course. So that's kind of where the word course came from. And I wanted to use that in a bit of a double meaning. So when I think about correcting course, it's like we're all on our own paths. I'm going to get a little bit heady and poetic here for a second. So warning. We're all on our own paths and we're heading towards whatever destination it is, whether it's our goals, whether it's just death, whether it's like meeting somebody who's going to change our lives. And as much as we want to be able to control it, a lot of these things are outside of our control. And so we end up going off the path. We end up going way far outside of that straight line that isn't really there, but it's like imaginary in our mind of like where we want to be. And so a lot of our decisions are just a matter of correcting that course and getting back closer to the place that we want to be. That feels right for us as an artist. It's so much based on feeling, and it's hard to describe sometimes, like what makes your gut want to do something. And so correcting course and like bringing yourself back over to why you started doing this in the first place or where you want to get to is what the title was about for me. And it just happened to start with this mini golf course that had a lot of these twists and turns. And it's like this element of design. It's very playful. It invites the viewer in. No one really gives credit to the people who design stuff like that in the world. That's just meant to be played on. And I like to think about my work that way as well, as like something for you to kind of get lost in and find a bit of your childhood playfulness within. The piece started as a portrait mode, like a vertical image, as the photograph is. And if you want to pull up the side by side, I did put it up on my Twitter, so you could see the drone photo and the final artwork.
Is it in the tweet that No, it's in a different tweet. I'll dig it up in the meantime.
And so I started with that proportion, but once I had kind of got the pattern going edge to edge to match the photo, and of course I embellished a lot, adding a lot of layers of color to create this feeling of inviting depth to the piece, even though it's 2D and static. Yeah, there you can see the architecture that I kind of started with and some of the shadows that he captured from above. It's a crazy photo. Like I didn't realize that that was a mini golf course when I first saw it. I thought it was like pools or something different, like carpets.
I guess
carnival,
like amusement park type. But I see the mini golf. You see the little mini golf things in it.
Yeah.
I'm also curious because it's a mini golf course. Like how high up is this? I feel like it's maybe not as high as it appears because just those.
Hard to know. Yeah. But I used to fly a drone for a long time. When I was living down in South America, I brought it everywhere with me. I ended up crashing the drone, and I haven't bought a new one since. But I have a big appreciation for like finding these spots and catching the light just right, so that a simple top-down shot becomes this like masterpiece of a labyrinth. That's like, where am I? What am I looking at here? Because people just don't look at this stuff from above all the time. And so, yeah, this is how I kind of started, and I created my version of the photo. And then I actually used Photoshop's AI generative fill to extend the photo. After this, I realized like I wanted more of this pattern, and I wanted there to be a border. So I basically extended his photo and added, it's not in the thread, but I added more of the holes essentially, and Photoshop did the best it could to create more of them. And I just wanted like a starting point to be able to keep going on the composition, and obviously added a lot of little blobs and things hiding in there, some textures. But eventually ended up with that blob. Well, go back to the square format one that has the whole piece in it, and you'll see a couple.
I couldn't zoom on the square on Foundation. I'll try to grab it here. All right, we're blob hunting. Continue though.
That was about it, really. Like I extended the piece until it felt like this is no longer just a translation of the photo. It feels like something new. It feels like I was able to translate the palm trees into like a cool icon that dances around the page with you and gives like the illusion of nature. And then the last part that I added was actually this bottom row that has all these white shapes. It just didn't feel finished. It felt like a little too similar to what I had done before as well. And I started to see Miami vibes in it from the colors. And so I drew what looks like a white sand beach, abstracted down to these lines and dots on the bottom. And that kind of locked everything into place and made it feel complete.
Yeah, it does center it grounds the entire piece, the white sand. But I also think I want to go back to this portion. Yeah, because I was noticing that like the top had like this kind of like pinkish hue. And it doesn't seem like you got that from the original. Like you chose that. Yeah,
it's like always trying to find colors that contrast each other, that make sense together. And I think being in Miami, I was seeing the pink flamingos everywhere. Mm-hmm. So it just felt like perfect for that moment. I do wish I could have dropped it while I was down there, but I think it's cool, a little bit less of a crazy timeline today.
You hear that? I think that this carries over. I feel like aerial photography is actually like a great source of ammo for you. I feel like this, like I can see how like, you know, a lot of those smaller figures that appear from an aerial photo would translate well to your work. Is this the first time you've done something like that though?
I think it's the first time that I've translated it into this kind of open lines style where I'm purposefully not closing the shapes and I'm creating like these open forms for you to navigate. So yeah, it's the first time I've done it so literally, but I've wanted to do it for a while. I do think of a lot of my pieces as this microcosm where each dot is like someone's story that you'll never fully understand. And we're all just like swarming around in this fishbowl. So it's an idea I've had for a while and I've been playing with, but never actually based it on drone photo before this.
Gotcha, dude. Can you talk a bit more about that last sentence? I think that's wildly interesting. So each dot is essentially serves as like a person or like a, I don't know. I see these like mini, you know, there's almost like mini networks within your work.
Yeah, networks is an interesting way to put it. I think the relationship between shapes, and then if you're breaking that down, like the lines versus the dots, it feels like lines obviously show motion or they show an edge of something. And then the dots, they're a little bit more free floating in the negative space and they have their own personal space. So I relate to the dots myself more because I feel like, yeah, when you get lost in one specific part, think about like that mini golf course where each dot is navigating it and going from hole to hole and from place to place. And I don't know. That's just something I've always wanted to do, is to take something that's so complex that you'll never fully fathom, like someone's life story, and just simplifying it down to the most simple element possible. And yeah, it's been a lot of playing with that idea in different ways over the last couple of years. And I feel like I've been dancing around it for so long, and eventually I will have probably be done with that style and move on to something else. But it's been really fun while I'm here.
Mm-hmm. I think I liked how you described like the dots and the lines. Is there a particular like mood that you think almost the curvature like style of a line creates? A thin line versus a thicker line, super circular line versus like a jagged line.
I think it's all like context based as well, because if you have a ton of straight lines and then you have one line that like just slightly curves on the very top of it, that's obviously going to stand out. But if you have a balance of straight lines and curved lines, it can create a mood as like a medley or as a symphony together. That's a lot of what I'm doing with these cities pieces, is I'm creating like the sheet music and then notes. There's like a grid going on, and then there's notes all over the place bouncing around and creating the illusion of motion and scale and depth, even though it's all just dots and lines and a couple icons here and there. It's just really fun. It's really something I find myself getting lost in and entertaining myself for a very long time. And I like to always share to other artists who are curious about how to find their style. It's like what process fascinates you so much that you can just do it for hours and hours and hours. Like that's a good clue to what your style is going to be.
Yeah, and I can see how you get lost in this. I think it's fun. Like, I don't know. I just envision as you're creating this, it's probably almost like you're like literally creating like little scenes within all of this different entire, an entire piece like this. And a lot of people probably don't necessarily understand the scenes, I would assume.
No,
So
but I like that. Yeah. People, when I did a cities series, people are like, what's the first city? It's like, oh, it's not a specific city. It's just something I made up. But I want people to see their city in it. And, maybe there's subtle things that do allude to like places I've been, but I'm not going in with that's my main objective. Just like letting it come out.
Yeah, man, I think that's sweet. Like, I feel like I just understood your work on an entirely different level. I'm glad you shared this. And I love the idea of the scenes within this. I think that's probably like a blast for you to create. I also feel like your work is almost a language that like only you can read. And I think that I think that also carries over to a lot of artists, but because, this is like so pattern based, I view it as more of like literally an alphabet.
I'm scratching at that for sure, pulling that thread for sure. Like I've been learning more about cultures that existed throughout history that never had alphabets, but they only used pictograms for their language. Like Mayan cultures and Asian cultures, they have languages that don't have any letter forms. It's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds or thousands of images that are illustrated. And then you look at the murals and it's like, that's their language. So I've been going deep on that as I'm getting ready for some projects next year. But for now, the cities has been my main thing. And I'll just share like one more little anecdote that I love to share when I'm talking about these cities pieces. I don't have a specific collection for it. It's just within F. Originals. But the idea that this is memory of mine that I can't seem to leave behind. It's like if you've ever been to a big city, but you remember it was like one of your first times going to that city and you're just like walking around, everything looks new and you have this new air that you're breathing in. And as a skateboarder, I'm seeing like new spots to explore. Like the entire area around me is a playground. And when you first enter New York City, that's how it feels like on a skateboard. And so I used to take the train down from Westchester. I'm sort of like 09, where I grew up near the big city. And I'd come down for the spots and we would just bounce from spot to spot, get kicked out left and right and play like a game of cat and mouse with security guards and just get clips throughout it and like put together a video. So those cities are really like reflections of my childhood, bouncing around Manhattan, trying not to get in too much trouble, but also get the tricks on tape and get away with something clean. And so the grid is like very much inspired by that part of the city that I grew up going to.
Dude, I'm ecstatic that you shared all of this. And I'm going to definitely be hyper analyzing a lot of this, I feel like, at a later time. But I also want to jump over to Alamo. Alamo, I know we covered your piece a little bit towards the beginning, but I want to deep dive, man. So let's go swim. Surfers and float.
Let's go swim. Yeah. Do you want to pull it up?
Yeah, I'm grabbing it right now. Just switching screens quickly. Also want to call out anybody that's not with us on YouTube. You can grab the YouTube link from the pinned tweet above, and would appreciate if everybody could share the pinned tweet to get as much turnout for the wonderful group up today. And And I am sharing screen on Surfers in Flight right now. Bang.
It was funny when Rich he would message asking if I had a piece ready, which it sounds like he did with you guys as well. And I kept this Google Doc open of all the images that he shared, and I kept flicking through them trying to see which one would resonate. And majority of my work is based around the water, whether that's in the mountains or in the ocean, or any piece that kind of involves water is something that I keep a big connection with. And I kept looking at all the track images and all these different ones and trying to like force something out of it. And I didn't really share anything on the thread with that, but nothing was really connecting. And I kept drawing different pieces that would maybe work with it. It kept kind of fighting its way. And one of the nights when I was thinking about it, because again, that subconscious, sometimes I'm dreaming and I'm trying to I'm just in insomnia because I can't even figure out like why I'm working in my sleep. And I kept asking the question of like, well, where is he taking these shots from? Because with aerial photography, you never know where they are. I mean, some places you can get a feel of maybe where it is, but even the tennis courts and the basketball and all the ocean ones, you really don't know where it's at unless you put it in his description. And so I kept trying to kind of put like, like where is Rich at? And that was the narrative that I kept bringing up. And so I'd started building out all these scenes, kind of like what FDOT was doing, where you kind of do the AI and kind of expand the canvas out. And I kept trying to expand it out in that bird's eye feel, but again, nothing was connecting. And so when I kept going back to Rich, then I kind of changed that perspective. And I think the first time I looked at it, I kind of did what 09 was doing, where you put it on the wall. And I was like, well, what if one piece was on the wall and then it bleeded down into the floor, and then I could put both of those perspectives in one go. And when I did that, nothing was really clicking. And then finally I was like, well, where is Rich? And then I zoomed out even more and I was like, well, what happens when I'm at these places and I'm watching somebody fly a drone? And when I've done that, I've always been curious of, what are they shooting? And then what are they looking at? And I kept just asking so many deep questions to myself. And one of the images that I pulled was this one that it had this huge shipping container, but like 3/4 of it was the ocean. And then there was a couple other ones that just had a couple surfers kind of bobbing in the water. And I kept going back between those two images and kind of drawing it. And next thing I know, I was like, well, what do those people look like at Rich's view? And then right when I had that conversation with myself, then everything kind of switched. And then I started to draw these characters that were those characters in bird's eye view at those angles. And so I kept drawing all these people and like switching out those expressions. And then slowly but surely, I got those feelings of what Rich was looking at. And then again, I had that narrative of, well, where is Rich? And then it kept zooming out and out. And next thing you know, this is basically someone's lens of one of us sitting on the beach looking at Rich, and maybe this is his daughter looking at the ocean. So it's just everybody's at the ocean enjoying their space, and there happens to be a drone photography. So I had a lot of fun just like building out this Alamo world that meets Rich, and fuck, it was challenging. Like, no joke, like one of the harder parameters of a brief of take this and use that. And so yeah, it was a really fun one.
Well, you kept saying, where is Rich? And then Rich appeared.
Here I am.
Yeah. And then he's there. Yeah, it's perfect
How you
timing,
doing, guys?
Yeah, man. Thanks for putting all this together.
No worries.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Hey, congratulations on the world. So great to have you. But Rich, do you know, by looking at this, were you immediately able to tell what pieces Alamo referenced?
Well, I mean, he asked me about different pieces, and and there was an angled surf shot, so I knew that he was working on something with it. But then once I saw the work in progress, I could see where he had taken that, and he had created his own world from it. So yeah, I kind of had a little sneak peek.
Yeah, and a lot of my work, it's funny, like when I'm drawing these coastal scenes, I have a lot of conversations with people that buy my prints and my work. And especially if I see them in person, they're always like, oh, I'm so glad you drew this particular point break or this particular location. And it's always a fun dialogue because most, if not all the time, on the spot that they point out isn't real, but it connects with them, and for those reasons it's like a really fun back and forth with them. And so I had this dialogue with myself again of where is this location, and at the end of the day it's literally nowhere and everywhere at the same time.
It's an
But,
Alamo
kind
world.
of-
but can,
Yeah.
can I say something like what's interesting is it's the shot was taken just south of Dana Point, and most kind of wave breaks like that, you don't get a big piece of land that runs along the side. But the point where I took the photo, I'm actually was stood along this side to take that photo. So it's quite ironic that there's a piece of land and I was stood on that side to take that photo.
I love that. That's almost proof in the pudding of those dialogues when people see it and they like fill it with that feeling that they've seen or they want to go to. And for me, I want to go here so bad.
Rich, what was that piece called?
The original piece?
Yes, yours.
Jeez, it was in my 2021 aerial art collection. Which
Is
was
it on Foundation or another
it
site?
was a 50-piece collection that I released in August 2021. I can find it.
If you could drop it, if you can dig it up and find it and drop it in the private chat. Happy
It's
to put
in
it
one
up.
of my threads.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's in the thread that like shows my sketch and then side by side.
Is it pinned up on your profile now? Thread.
Yeah, click that one right there.
This?
The bottom right in there.
You
Yeah,
see the
that
image on it.
No, you just passed it. Yeah, right.
Gotcha. This
Yep,
one.
right there. Yeah.
So I was just wondering, there's another piece you had, Rich. So I was wondering if it was boats or surfers, but I feel like it was boats. Tell me if I'm wrong. This one, community.
Okay.
Oh, it is surfers.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Damn. Where is this in the same location?
That is, let me think. That is Huntington Beach, or just north of Huntington Beach.
F. Dot, did you consider this one at all as one to reference and feel like it was low hanging fruit?
No.
Gotcha.
But I do like the photo a lot. I just didn't see my lines in it the way I saw the other one.
I saw this when I looked at it earlier. I was like, I just thought it would have been one that you could have rocked with well.
I do like the surfing theme a lot more than the golf, but I thought Alamo could handle that one pretty well.
That is in his wheelhouse. Dude, have you been surfing recently, man?
Me or
Oh yeah,
Alamo?
every day.
Yeah.
I was just in Mexico the past month and then Ventura before I came here. So yeah, every day.
Whenever
And
Alamo
it's been
says GM, it's while he's surfing.
Yes. Yeah.
So
If it's a
yeah.
late GM around 9:30 or 10, that means that I was not near my computer.
9:30 or 10 p.m. or a.m.
AM.
Gotcha.
If it's like me doing something at 7 or 7:30 on the internet, then that means that I did not go to the beach.
Noted.
Yeah.
Do you ever
And
night?
now it's kind of
Do you ever
Sorry?
go out working at night, Alamo?
man, there's only like a couple places in the world that have like full-on dome lights. There's like a few places in Brazil and a couple other ones, but for the most part, unless you're in like San Diego and it's got red tide coming in with all the algae making the like bioluminescent, I don't know how to pronounce that word, where like all the algae's making babies and making all the light, and you can surf that, but it's a little gross.
Wait, what? Can you? I mean, there's a part of me that just feels like the moonlight stars at the beach is enough to keep it lit enough for you to surf. Is that a bad idea?
If it's a full moon, it's doable. It's just a little spooky. That's all.
Hmm.
Just straight up doesn't feel as comfortable.
Do you feel like you're just gonna lose sight of the shore, or what's the spook?
Just the little critters under the ocean.
Oh, yeah, but those can
As
get you
simple as
anytime.
that.
I guess
Yeah, I
they
know.
sharks are more nocturnal though, right?
Yeah, it's just all mental. You just can't see anything.
Hmm.
A big wave comes and you don't even see it, and you just get smashed on. So yeah, not so much nighttime, but sunrise and sunsets are the best.
You hear that?
Yeah, yeah.
And Rich, where were the surfer photos taken?
Just south of Dana Point, so South Orange County.
Gotcha. Orange County, that's California.
Yeah.
What's
That's
your? I feel like I hear an accent though. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Nottingham, England. I say football, but I'm a soccer coach by trade. I used to work for a pro club in England. I travelled. I lived in Egypt, Iceland, Norway. I was all over, and I just got sick of it. So a club brought me over to like Northern California to coach, and I've been coaching ever since. And then just the aerial photography just kept seeping in, and then when my second child was when we were on the way to the hospital for the birth of my second child, my current boss said I had no longer had a job at the club via text, because there was a lot of parent power and me not playing people that were diving and fouling and getting sent off, and so there's a little bit of a revolt. So they text me on the way to the hospital, and so I've just been for just over 2 years now, full-time stay-at-home dad slash doing what I'm doing, I guess.
Yo, love the backstory there, man.
Yeah, it's a bit of a wild one.
And it's so aerial photography though. At what point did you? And forgive me, just because I was a bit caught off guard with an alarm. But when did you first like really expand into aerial photography?
Jeez, I think I'm just thinking now. Like I should have worn a hat. I was thinking my hair's a mess from the kids climbing all over me. But I can't wear a hat on this, and then I turn up and everyone's got a hat on.
Man. We got 5 hats on stream right now. You definitely could have worn a hat.
It's all right. I might go and get one. I think 2015 I got my first one. It was called a 3DR Solo, which actually what Ruben Wu started.
Were you photographing before that?
A little bit. I mean, my dad was always big into his photography, so I had cameras, but it didn't really do anything for me. And then I think the first drone I got, you basically had a GoPro that fits onto it, and you could press for it to start recording and stop recording, or to take a picture. So you couldn't really do much. And I mean, if I look at the pictures now, they're shocking. But it was an introduction. It was an ability to take the camera into the sky, and then it's just kind of it's gone from there. And now it's a little bit of an obsession.
You hear that? What were like first locations that really spoke to you?
Well, I lived in like San Jose, Northern California, so I didn't really fly much because I was right by San Jose Airport. There wasn't much opportunity. I would take it into the forests, kind of between San Jose and Santa Cruz, but it wasn't until I moved to Orange County that I really kind of stepped it up. I think the draw of the ocean and being able to be above the water, that kind of was the tipping point. And then it was like, okay, I'm going to do this every day. And then they've got kids, and I can't do it every day.
Yeah, but it's good to be hooked nonetheless. And 12 Days of Art, man. What prompted you to launch 12 Days of Art? Was last year the first year, or did it kick off before that?
Last year was the first, and I think you were the tipping point. I was talking with Mashiro and Tomius about doing just I'd done a collab with Ronald Ong. I don't know if you guys know. I mean, his stuff was he's very much in a medical career right now, which is kind of a bit forced upon him. But his work was amazing, and we did a collab and a little edition, and then was talking to Mashiro and Tomius. We were going to do just a little 3-way collab thing, and then I think I posted something, and you made a comment, and it was like, "This is going to be awesome." Or whatever. And I was thinking, why not ask you? So I asked Dot, and then I kept asking people, and everyone kept saying yes. And I was like, okay, where's this going to stop? And we had, I mean, some of the people that were in last year that didn't come back. I mean, So Complex Art and Photon and May, who goes by, I was in the handle, Anesta. There was so many that kept saying yes, and I just thought, well, where do we cap it? Where do we stop? And we've got 24, and there's 12 days of Christmas. Let's align it there, and it did. I mean, it did well, and people liked it, and I enjoyed it, and the art was phenomenal. And then I thought, well, let's bring these people together. Let's bring some more people together, and the quality of the work is just it's phenomenal. I've spoken to some collectors, and one in particular said how good the work is, and is surprised that there's not more being collected. But I'm happy that it's at a price point where I feel like the artists deserve to be paid for what they've done. I don't want to just like get them lowballed that any offer comes and they're taking it. The quality is phenomenal. And if it takes time, maybe it takes time, but enough people will see the work, enough people will see the quality, and at some point it will find the right homes. And that's kind of the approach I've taken with my work throughout. It goes in peaks and troughs, and I've seen that people complain on the timeline about what's going on at the moment, or what this and that. Just put the work out there. The work is just so good that people can't deny that they would want a piece. And I think the barrier of credit card, people have said, can I pay this, can I pay that? And that stopped a few people, but I mean, it's probably also stopped a few people from getting in debt, collecting some of the pieces. So, yeah, I'd like to do it every year. I'd like to bring in new artists. Like it's hard to not have the same people, but some people say that they've got other things going on, and some people are so strong in the space that I want them to come in. Like Mobsam, I was like, I've got to ask him. Like, I'm loving the direction of his work, and I feel like it aligned with my tennis courts or my basketball court shots, and I have to ask him. And then to see what he created is just like it's phenomenal, and to see it progress slowly, and go back and forth, and just see it being built. That I mean, the previews and the artwork is the bit I take the most joy from. I hate the selling side. I hate having to push and promote work. Like, let's just create what we do and find ways to get people to see it.
Exceptional words there, man. I wish I had a better button to give you a round of applause. I have to figure it out on the audio interface. But I can imagine this is incredibly inspiring for you, getting to watch your work, you know, collaborated with a bunch of exceptional artists that are completely, I feel like, different than what you do. Like, there are no photographers in the world, are they?
No, and that's kind of intentional. I mean, not that there can't be, but I just thought everyone in the world has their own unique style, and that's I think that's where collaborations are so strong, when there is such a distinct style that someone has. And I mean, some people have commented many positive things to me about the work, and I say, well, I feel like I'm just I'm the guy that delivers the ingredients to the restaurant. These are guys, the chefs. They're creating the masterpieces. Like, it's their work, it's their style. I'm just a canvas. So it kind of has to be an artist that has their own style, that has their own kind of body of work. And honestly, you could probably look at the collection and go, that's this person's, that's this person's, that's this person's, and that's kind of a testament to the artists themselves, that they've got to a point where the work's recognizable.
Very much so, agreed. I think everybody's work up here is like very distinguishable when you see it on the timeline. And I love how you did that. I just love how I feel like all of these artists are drastically different than you, and it's cool to see how they took your seed and just took it so far, and where all of the different seeds landed. I also think that it sets a good precedent for artists to do more things like this in the future. I know Deca has the feature where artists are now able to like create posters of like a different artist one of one, which I think is really cool. Where, you know, I guess all of the artists would essentially create posters of the same one of one, but it's cool that you allowed everybody to just go through your collections, pick what they liked, and then take it as far as they wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to have as very little influence. Like, just said to the people, do your thing. Like, happy to chat, but I kind of don't want to. I don't want to have any influence. Like, I don't need to. You like, you guys are strong enough without any of my input. So, select what you want, do what you want, and I trust you. I trust you. That's kind of why I asked you.
Hell yeah. I think that is a great note for us to wrap up on. I want to thank everybody for jumping on today. An exceptional group up. Thank you to Rich for curating the world and jumping on and sharing with us all that he did, as well as ADHD, Alamo, F.09, and Mobsum also for allowing us to dive deep into their pieces and talk about everything that they've created in the whole collaboration process. Also want to shout out the audience. Thank you guys for joining. Always a pleasure to see everybody up here. Appreciate the support for the wonderful group of artists. And want to encourage everybody to go on the world. It is on Foundation, 12 Days of Art. If you search it, it will come up. It's like been on the homepage of Foundation, I feel like, every time I click up there. So make sure to definitely go check it out. The link to the world is in the pinned tweet above. And you can also definitely follow all of these artists across all platforms, primarily X. Check out their work. And if you enjoyed the stream today, would appreciate a like and subscribe on YouTube for Eminent, and a follow as well. But once again, want to thank everybody for jumping on. And any closing statements, guys?
Can I just say thank you to the guys? Like, seriously.
Go
All
for
the
it,
work is amazing, and I like I said, you guys have done the hard work. You guys have created some phenomenal pieces. I will do all I can to get it in front of as many people as I can, because the work deserves to be seen and hopefully find the right homes. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. I was gonna say thanks for the fun challenge. It was a fun challenge, and I'm happy to be part of this with all these other talented artists. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Rich.
Thank
for having
you.
us back. Awesome to
I'm
do
excited
it
to
2
get
years in a row.
old. Yeah, on that, like I'm excited to get old and look back through the 12 days archives in the years coming up.
Oh yeah, we're not stopping.
I trust that. But want to let everybody enjoy the rest of their Fridays and their weekends, and catch you guys on the next one. Cheers, all.
Later.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Bye bye.